Pitch Side Podcast channel. I am your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these podcast episodes, the match recaps, and all the other content on the channel, including, of course, this podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. Follow us on social media, and what's not PSP on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and of course, join us for more. You're welcome. Welcome to episode 95. It's Friday, so it means that yesterday was Thursday, #fact, but also means that there is a weekend preview to come, but not before going back and ruling the clock to the Europa League yesterday, and it was really interesting in terms of what happened into it. Of course, the big talking point is the draw between Manchester United and AC Milan, which I talked about in the review. You can check it out on the channel. It was a pretty balanced affair. You cannot say that there is most of the ties, have been decided. A couple of ties, swaying towards the winning team, really, and we're going to be talking about them in a minute. But overall, it looks like a pretty balanced sort of around of 16 ties. I think at least a couple of them look like that. Anyway, Ajax defeated BSC Young Boys 3-0, of course, in the first leg of the Europa League match. Of course, 3 goals coming in late on in the second half. Really, it was a late rout from Ajax Amsterdam. The first goal was from Davy Klaassen in the 61st minute. In the 81st, it was Dusan Tadic with the second, and Brobby with the third goal from an assist from Gravenberg. 3-0 it is for Ajax, and an important victory against a side like Young Boys, who just eliminated by Leverkusen, one, I think, of the best sides in the competition. Ajax are really, really doing well this season in the Europa League and look like quite the favourites, I think, to do so. They're really doing well at the moment in the competition for themselves before the second leg next week. Of course, in Switzerland, Villarreal managed to defeat Dynamo Kiev away in the Olimpiski, which is not an easy task to do. Pau Torres from the 29th minute with the first goal, and Raul Albiol, the two centre-halves of Villarreal, doing the bidding for them. It is an incredible victory for them. Of course, I think the two best players really in that game for Villarreal, a game that, Dynamo Kiev had a lot of opportunities, but not really a lot of danger. Villarreal on the other side did really well under the guise of Unai Emery to really manage this away victory, which not just an away victory, but an away victory with a clean sheet, which is going to make them even safer for the home leg in La Ceramica. Man United, of course, as I mentioned in the review, drawn against AC Milan in a game that I would repeat myself when I say Milan it was less than a deserved draw, really. Milan should have won and could have won because they had opportunities, but I think Man United's performance really, it just leaves a lot of question marks, a lot of questions to be answered in the second half and the second leg, that is, and how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be managing the second leg. Is he going to go for it? Is he going to cave in and just wait on the counters? The away result doesn't help. This result doesn't help. It helps AC Milan because if they sit deep and decide to defend for the 0-0, they would win probably the time. Of course, as I mentioned, check out the review if you want to know what I thought of that game. Slavia Praha drawn against Rangers 1-0 as well. Slavia Praha opening the scoring very early in the game, taking an early lead inside the first 10 minutes of the first half, and then, of course, Rangers equalising very late on in the game to salvage a draw before the second leg. Thus, Steven Gerrard keeping the undefeated streak intact. Stansiu with the first goal in the 6th minute, and Helander equalising for Rangers 35 minutes into the game. An important draw again, keeping the undefeated streak intact, and also going to the second leg with a bit of an advantage. Roma managed to, I think, settle the deal against Shakhtar Donetsk. 3-0 it was for the Roman side. Pellegrini with the 22nd minute opener, then El Shaarawy adding in the 72nd minute, and in the 76th minute, Mancini with the third third goal from a set piece from the corner from Brian Cristante. The same result, but with a goal from the other side, really. 3 goals for Arsenal against Olympiacos away, and it's not too much about the trauma, isn't it, for Arsenal? 3 goals to 1, and this was, I think it was a brilliant performance from Arsenal overall. I mean, brilliant goals, by the way. The opener from Martin Odegaard was amazing. It was a brilliant shot in the 33rd minute. But of course, with a bit of horrific memories, Yusuf Al-Arabi scored the equaliser in the 57th minute for Olympiacos from a horrendous mistake from the defence of Arsenal. Granit Xhaka again making an absolute shambles of a mess with the ball, and then Gabriel managing to score the second in the 72nd minute, and El Nene with a beautiful strike. The Egyptian midfielder makes it 3-1 for Arsenal, and no more trauma from Olympiacos. Hopefully the second leg now should be as easy as expected now for Arsenal. Granada defeated Molde 2-0, and of course continuing the exploits, Jorge Molina is scored the opener, the first goal, and of course Soldado scores the second goal. It's all about the experience. For those guys, Molina and Soldado. 2-0 for Granada, continuing their achievements in the Europa League, and they seem to be 1 foot in the quarterfinal of the Europa League. Another team that has its first foot in the Europa League is Tottenham. Of course, they're doing really well in this competition this season. 2-0 against Dinamo Zagreb at home. Of course, Kane with the brace from the 24th minute and the 69th minute to make it 2-0 for Tottenham, giving them a big advantage going away. I don't think Tottenham, Arsenal, Roma, Ajax. I think these 4 teams are quite locked in, I would say, in the quarterfinal. I think Granada maybe are sort of there. Villarreal are sort of there. It looks pretty settled, but of course Man United, AC Milan and Slavia Praha Rangers are still up for grabs, I would say, unless a miracle happens in the second leg next week. Let's turn our attention now to the proper preview of the weekend, and we're going to be starting from the Premier League and round 28 in the Premier League, of course, after the midweek fixtures, which saw Man City thrash Southampton 5-2, and I think stomp their lead in the table, and certainly affirm that they're coming for the title pretty strong. Round 28, and we're back to normalcy, really, after a couple of mismatched fixtures here and there. From previous and from coming rounds, of course, because of the commitments in the FA Cup. Back to round 28, and it kicks off with Newcastle facing Aston Villa on Friday. Leeds United kick off the big Saturday on against Chelsea, Crystal Palace versus West Brom as well, Everton versus Burnley, Fulham face Man City. Quite an interesting fixture. Southampton, Brighton on Sunday afternoon. Leicester City, Sheffield United, Arsenal, Tottenham on Sunday, Man United, West Ham, and you have Wolves versus Liverpool on Monday. Those last 4 fixtures, I would say, are the ones that really matter. I mean, probably aside from the Leeds United, Chelsea, I think the 4 last matches, Leicester City, Sheffield United, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United, West Ham, and Wolves, Liverpool, I think all important, all involved sides that want to have to be in the top 4 spots. I mean, the North London derby itself, of course, it's right itself, and we're going to be talking from there. As we saw earlier, both sides are, I think, in pretty comfortable in their European adventures. I mean, it's all about, I think, priorities now for the moment for both sides. Now, for Arsenal and overall in the table generally, Arsenal are not that far from Tottenham. 7 points, yes, but when you count it that way, I think it sounds pretty awful. But I think a victory here takes it 4 points behind for Arsenal, eases the way for them to get into the top 4 spots. For Tottenham, I think a victory here would take them, over Everton, potentially over West Ham United, depending on the result that they would have against Manchester United. But that's, of course, they don't know because the game is going to be later down on Sunday than the North London derby. So pretty much Arsenal, with the start of the season that they had, and the fact that they, at one stage, we were talking about a team literally, not literally, but close to being in the relegation zone. They were at 16th at some point during this season, and Tottenham being top of the table at one point during the season. I'm talking about Tottenham winning the league. Quite the unfortunate turn of events that ends up with only 7 points between the two sides. Not so much, I think, in terms of performance as well, separates them really. I don't see Tottenham doing a lot of, doing a lot of those great exploits. I mean, Gareth Bale improved in the last couple of matches, yes. Harry Kane returned to form, Son returned to form. Tottenham overall, I think, rejuvenated in the last couple of matches, and I think that should be a good sign for them. I mean, 5 victories on the bounce isn't something easy, specifically including, of course, 2 European victories against Wolfsburg and Dinamo Zagreb at home, 4-1 to Crystal Palace, a hard win against Fulham, and, a very good form as of late for the Spurs. Arsenal, I think, in my opinion, they should be focusing on the Europa League more than the Premier League, or getting anywhere near the Premier League, because the top 4 is almost an impossibility for Arsenal. Tottenham might be closer than that with their current form, of course, and everything. As for Arsenal, there's bits and pieces here and there that they should fix, I think, if they want to have a good run from here to the end of the season in the last 10 fixtures that will lead them to somewhere of a decent spot. Like, they need, mathematically speaking, they will need around 7 to 8 victories out of those last 10, or at least, if we count them with 30 points, so they need, 21, 24 points out of these last 10 matches, which is mathematically impossible, considering that they're still going to face Liverpool at home, and they still have a lot of fixtures, that are going to be really, really hard for them against sides above them and below them as well. And considering that Tottenham are in their best form really at the moment, and looks like hitting on all cylinders and finding that tune-in form that they just need to win matches, and it looks like they're really going to be. It's going to be a hard game for Arsenal, I think, containing Tottenham. I want to forget the European form because it doesn't matter for me at the moment, so I'm going to favour Tottenham for this one, knowing that their form is really better, and knowing that they are a side that finally finds itself, in a good spot. Maybe the game would disappoint me, but I think Tottenham should be winning this one. Not quite comfortably, but should be winning this one as well. Man United West Ham, of course, is the second big game on Sunday as well. United coming off this, I would say, disappointment in the Europa League. Definitely not the result that they wanted. As I mentioned in the review of that game, again, check it out. It's the management of the game from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was pretty bad, and roughly is something you want to have. Like, you cannot have a coach doing you like that in the game, taking off the only player who has the vision, the ability of passing in your midfield, and just, letting yourself off. And obviously, resting him for this game against West Ham is, I don't know, unexplainable. Like, okay, like, you're not competing for the title. You're not really close to Man City in any way, shape or form. Yes, West Ham are not that far in the top table, 6 points behind you. They win, it becomes 3, and there's a whole conversation about whether West Ham could get into a top 4 or not, but eventually, I think this is not a game. This game was hard in the reverse fixture, the 3-1 victory for United, and until they got Bruno Fernandes on, it was a hard one, and that's, I think, an evidence of how much they need Bruno Fernandes this season, how reliant they are on him, which could be a problem in the future if they don't find other solutions, if they don't find new players to rely on really on the pitch, or players to step up basically and take his role. A hard one for Man United. West Ham, of course, are going to be licking their chomps really on this one, looking to be in the top 4 conversation, which is an interesting situation they have been this season under David Moyes. Again, all credit to him for taking this team and moving it forward. And of course, Wolves Liverpool on Monday. We cannot say anything. First of all, congratulations for Liverpool on their European qualification. And of course, this game against Wolves, it was quite easy in the first fixture of it, 4-0, but I think in this one it's pretty different. with the form Liverpool are in at the moment, and I know that the Leipzig victory might turn a little bit of heads, but in my opinion, I still believe that Leipzig gave them the game away, played with the same sort of ineffectiveness, same kind of slow nature in the two legs. So I think they gave the game to Liverpool away, and even in that form, you don't give games to Liverpool away. So that's why I think, Wolves is going to be a different test, might be, more harder. I think Jurgen Klopp now should risk having Fabinho now in the middle. If he's still going for a top four, if he's still going to be gunning for a top four spot, and it's possible, he should be putting Fabinho in the midfield, risking, putting a unexperienced pairing of centre halves in Kabak and Phillips, Kabak and Williams, or whatever. I think Kabak now is going to be a starter for the near future, at least until Gomez or Matip or Van Dijk return. And then, of course, you put Fabinho in his normal position in the midfield, and you improve Thiago, and you improve the whole game, really, for Liverpool. In my opinion, this could be a hard game. This could be a hard game, and it will be a hard game for Liverpool, no doubt about it, considering the injuries, the form, and all of that. But somehow, I think the bad form is going to stop. And in my opinion, probably they could be winning against Wolves on Monday. Before we go, the table of the Premier League stands like this: Man City with playing a game ahead, of course, of the others, 68 points, 54 for United, 53 for Leicester City, 50 for Chelsea, 48 for West Ham, 46 Everton, 45 for Tottenham, 43 for Liverpool, 40 for Aston Villa, Arsenal 38, 35 for both Leeds United and Wolves, 34 for Crystal Palace, 33 for Southampton, 30 for Burnley, 27 for Newcastle, Brighton 26 as well as Fulham in 18th, and of course West Brom 18 and Sheffield United 14 at the very bottom of the table. Moving on from one league, which its top four is still up for grabs, to another league that I think its top four is pretty settled. It looks like, of course, in Atletico Madrid, Barcelona and Real Madrid, and we're talking about La Liga, of course, and round 27 is upon us. Levante versus Valencia kicking things off on Friday. Alaves versus Cadiz kicking Saturday's action off. Real Madrid facing Elche in a pretty tricky game, I would say. The first fixture definitely was tricky for them with the 1-1 result. Osasuna versus Valladolid on Saturday as well. Getafe, Atletico Madrid on Saturday night, of course. Real Madrid, they certainly, if they were victorious, they would be hoping for a slip for Atletico Madrid, later on against Getafe. Celta Vigo versus Athletic Club on Sunday, Granada versus Real Sociedad on Sunday, Eibar Villarreal, Sevilla versus Betis, and Barcelona versus Huesca. And, again, it's all about the title race in Spain. And although the derby and the latest results and the latest drop in form, I think, for Atletico Madrid may revived and may relieved Barcelona and Real Madrid and brought life back into the title race, I don't think. The victory against Levante, against Athletic Bilbao, for Atletico Madrid, I don't think that it filled the Barcelona and Real Madrid fans with a lot of hope. The 6-point lead is now restored. I think Atletico Madrid are probably going to be grinding out results anyway from the next couple of games. I don't think, in my opinion, that Atletico Madrid are going to let this lead slip anymore. We are in a point of the season where you just cannot let the lead slip. You just not do that. Atletico Madrid definitely should be more focused, I think, on the next couple of fixtures. They don't have the easiest of games per se, really, and also their opponents. Let's compare the next 5 fixtures, really, for those 3 sides: Atletico, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. Let's start with Atletico, of course. In the next fixture, aside from this one against Getafe, they play Alaves and in the round 28. In round 29, they go and travel to Sevilla. In round 30, they travel to Betis, and in round 31, they host Huesca. So it's not exactly the easiest of games for Atletico Madrid really talk about. For Real Madrid as well, it doesn't get any easier really from here. Away to Celta Vigo, and then at home to Eibar, and then El Clasico, of course, on the 11th of April, post the international break, and that is going to be, I think, a defining moment, depending on what happened. On what happened in the previous fixture, because in my opinion, for most of the season, I thought, well, this Clasico is going to be about the second place, and it might be really, if and certainly the loser in this Clasico could count themselves out of the title race. 8 fixtures to go, and that after the Clasico, Real Madrid are going to be travelling to Cadiz, and then they will play Real Betis in another hard game on round 32. So that is quite a really tough list of fixtures for those 3 sides. And Barcelona, of course, after hosting Huesca on Monday in this round, they're going to travel to Sociedad to face Real Sociedad. Then, of course, facing Valladolid. Then, of course, as I mentioned, the El Clasico, and then they have Getafe at home, and then they have Villarreal away from home. So not quite the easiest of fixtures to talk about for those 3 teams yet. Again, it probably should be defined, I think, by a Clasico would be the turning point, whether this season is going to go to a triple threat sort of style, if I'm using the wrestling term, title race between Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid and Barcelona, which at the moment doesn't look to be. I mean, let's break it down like this, break it down for real. The media will try to tell you that there's a title race in Spain, right? But I never saw one. Like, it was just Atletico Madrid leading. They dropped points in 3 or 4 games, whatever number that is. They dropped points. Real Madrid and Barcelona won games, not certainly against them. Real Madrid only had a point against Atletico Madrid in a game that probably Atletico Madrid should have hung on to the lead. And, 6 points of a lead now. I mean, Atletico Madrid shot themselves in the foot. If they won the game in hand, it would have been 11, 13 points. They had the potential to really break away from the 2 others. And we could have really talking about how important is the Clasico, or is there any use of a Clasico. But, I mean, it's inevitable, really. It's inevitable that Atletico Madrid are going to be winning. If they don't win the league, that's going to be a collapse. I mean, it will need a collapse, not just dropping points, because I don't imagine that Barcelona, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid not dropping points from here till the end of the season. Certainly, El Clasico is coming in a couple of fixtures' time, so set your calendars there. One of them or both of them are going to be dropping points. So Atletico Madrid, and by that token, they need to always win their games. They need to win the 3 games ahead of the El Clasico fixture, because if they drop points, and, if they drop points ahead of a Clasico, the winner of that match is going to be taken advantage, over the other, and it's going to be closer than ever before, I think, in this season. And it's not a point of the season, just 10 matches, 11 matches out to the end of the season. It's not a point where you want to have a title race if you're a team leading the table. Atletico Madrid do not want to have a title race now, when they are leading the table 10 matches before the end of the season and 6 points above Barcelona and Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, and they don't want that kind of stress leading into the end of the season. And certainly they still have a Champions League to figure out against Chelsea, which is a different animal on its own, really. And we're going to be talking about that when you preview the game against Atletico Madrid, and certainly this is the kind of time and period of the season where you feel the waters for Atletico Madrid. You test their strength, really. Will they budge under pressure? Will they crumble, really? Will they drop points? Will they be hardened by the other La Liga teams? Will they be chased off by Barcelona and Real Madrid? Could they catch up to them very late on in the season? We should wait and see. The table of the La Liga stands like this at the moment: 62 points for Atletico Madrid, 56 for Barcelona, Real Madrid 54, 48 for Sevilla, 45 for Real Sociedad, 42 for Betis, 37 for Real, 33 for Athletic Club, 33 for Celta Vigo, as well as Granada, 32 for Levante, Valencia 30, 28 for Osasuna Cadiz, with 27 for Getafe, Valladolid 25, 24 for Elche, 22 for Eibar, 22 for Alaves, and 20 for Huesca at the bottom of the table. From one league that its leader looks like he's going to be winning the title to another, and we're going to Italy, the Serie A, and around 27 as well. from action there. Lazio starts with Crotone on Friday. Atalanta versus Spezia kicks off also on Friday. A double header on Friday in the Serie A. Atalanta, of course, with I think a big chance on their hands in this one. They could go up to a joint third really with Juventus if they win their fixture, of course, on Friday. On Saturday it will be Sassuolo versus Verona, Benevento versus Fiorentina, Genoa versus Udinese, Bologna versus Sampdoria, that's on Sunday, Parma versus Roma, Torino versus Inter, Cagliari, Juventus, and Milan, Napoli on Sunday night. It's a big stretch, I think, of games at that one in the late on Sunday. Torino, Inter, Cagliari, Juventus, and Milan, Napoli, all calls for a lot of different consideration. I mean, for Inter, it's all about winning now, and the fact that they have this big advantage over the others, no European games. And, I mean, they have it now over Milan now for the rest of the season. They will have it over Milan. At least if Milan goes deep into the Europa League, that's where they have the advantage, I think, over them. As far as Juventus are concerned, it's the European disappointment once again for the third season in a row, for the third year in a row. Another disappointment in the Champions League, another catastrophic performance at home, and another result that just disappoints the fans, really, and disappoints them in the project that Juventus are promoting, sort of, with Cristiano Ronaldo and the whole deal with him to try and win the Champions League as an objective. But they found themselves, I mean, objectively, without not even a bit of a bias, they found themselves doing even worse than what they used to do without Cristiano. Like, in 2017, they were in the Champions League final. And in 2018, they were eliminated by, in 2018, I think they were eliminated by, I don't exactly remember, but anyway, in 2018, they were eliminated. In 2019, in 2018, they were eliminated, I think, Barcelona. In 2019, find themselves eliminated by Ajax. 2020, they found themselves eliminated by Lyon in the round of 16, and in 2021, eliminated by Porto from the round of 16 as well. This is 3 years in a row where Juventus have a bad result in Europe, and I don't think that the fans are going to believe in the project anymore. Returning to the domestic fixtures for them, I think is going to be a bit of hell. It's going to be a bit like hell, really, and thankfully for them, there's no fans in the stadiums, because if they had fans, the fans at home would have seriously, spewed their venom at the players. I mean, it's a tricky fixture already against Cagliari, and with the disappointment of a European exit, I think they don't really seem motivated, and they won't be, probably, considering the situation. I mean, they are 10 points away from Inter, and if Inter manage to defeat Torino, it's going to be 13, and, if anybody expecting Juventus to just, still win the Serie A title, I really expected this since last season. As they're slopping the form last season, I expected really they won't win the Serie A title again. I don't see that happening, and it certainly came to fruition. Inter Milan are leading now, and almost certainly they have the title in their hand at the moment. They're really in a touching distance from the title. They win those couple of fixtures, I think it's going to be done and dusted for them, and they will have all the advantage in the world, I think, in terms of winning the Serie A title ahead of Juventus as well. Milan facing Napoli on Sunday night might not be significant, I think, in the grand scheme of things, but certainly, at least on paper we have a title race. At least we have some sort of, a competition between the two sides. We had for the totality of this season between Inter and AC Milan. It was interesting to see, but I think this is the stretch of the season where Inter Milan are going to be breaking away, probably, and they will have the opportunity to just, escape from the rest of the pack. Certainly they have Sassuolo, Bologna, Cagliari, and Napoli next. Not the easiest of five fixtures, not the easiest of the next five fixtures for Inter as well. If you talk also about AC Milan, as we mentioned, they have Napoli, Man United, the second leg, which I think they did very, very well in the first leg. Fiorentina away, Sampdoria at home, and Parma away. I think games pretty winnable for those two sides, I think, to continue competing for the Serie A title. And, as far as Juventus are concerned, they have this game against Cagliari in the midweek, another fixture against Napoli, of course, Benevento, Torino and Genoa. I mean, all winnable games, but you really don't trust Juve at the moment, considering that they just went out to Porto in the Champions League, and everybody thought, well, this was the easiest draw possible, right? And almost nobody cared about this game, but I certainly had that feel in my heart. I mean, again, this is a stretch in the Serie A where you just think Inter are going to break away. They should be breaking away from the pack. And I think it's all about the top 4 for Juventus. They should be just saving their top 4 spot on the table, which is certainly in jeopardy, because AS Roma could overleap them, Atalanta could overleap them, Napoli would be able to take them over if they manage to win them in midweek, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that game is going to be playing out between the two sides, because the Super Cup game was for Juventus, the league game was for Napoli at home, and definitely now this the second game between the two sides is going to be very, very interesting to define how Juventus are going to be ending in the top 4. The table of the Serie A heading into this fixture: Inter 62 points, 56 for AC Milan, 52 for Juventus, 50 for AS Roma, 49 for Atalanta, 47 for Napoli, Lazio with 47 as well, 38 for Verona, 36 for Sassuolo, 32 for both Sampdoria and Udinese, 28 for Bologna, 27 for Genoa, 26 for Fiorentina, Spezia and Benevento, 22 for Cagliari, 20 for Torino, 16 for Parma and Crotone with 15 at the very bottom. And rounding up the preview of the weekend, and we go to the Bundesliga, of course, in Germany. Quite interesting situation is going to be brewing up there, 2 points behind between Bayern Munich and Leipzig. Quite an interesting title race going on as well there, so it's probably going to be a very interesting fixture for both sides. And it kicks off on Friday with Augsburg facing Borussia Mönchengladbach, Werder Bremen face Bayern Munich on Saturday, Mainz, Freiburg, Union Berlin, Köln, Wolfsburg, Schalke, Dortmund, Hertha Berlin. That is all on Saturday, and on Sunday it's Bayer Leverkusen, Arminia Bielefeld, RB Leipzig versus Eintracht Frankfurt, quite an interesting one to watch, and Stuttgart are going to be facing Hoffenheim. So this is, again, it's also a point of the season in where you expect a certain team to break away. And as with the inevitability in the Serie A, I think in Laliga, that inevitability might be just a little bit smaller in the Bundesliga at the moment, with the 2 points difference, of course, obviously being the first factor. The fact that Bayern Munich and Leipzig are going to be facing each other in the near future is not going to be that far from us now. It's on the 4th of April. If you ask, of course, right after the international break, the first game for Bayern Munich is going to be against Leipzig away from home, and definitely, having this, I mean, the first couple of fixtures for Bayern are interesting before this one, because they face Werder Bremen away and Stuttgart at home, so not exactly the hardest of the hardest things to do, but still, they could drop points in either one. And I really fancy them. Dropping points against Werder Bremen. Maybe not so against Stuttgart, but I fancy them dropping points against Werder Bremen. A side who really, who have that really. I mean, they have their heads in the game. Definitely, they want to do better than what they did last season. They had a decent form as of late. Not exactly balanced, not exactly all wins, but certainly they're getting the decent point. They're getting necessary points. Their last victory against Bielefeld in the midweek, I think, was pretty rough and pretty hard in the way they came, because Arminia Bielefeld played better and Werder Bremen took advantage of the situations that they had. But for Bayern Munich, I really see them going through, Werder Bremen, going through Stuttgart, and of course the game against Leipzig is going to be a defining one, because their form this season hasn't been that good, and I really feel bad saying this, because when you're leading the table, your form should be great, but I think they shot themselves in the foot more than they could expect. But, Bayern Munich gave the fans what they wanted, which is not a race, I think, considering their form, the way they dropped points against the likes of Arminia Bielefeld, the way they dropped points against Eintracht Frankfurt and losing, and all of that. And it looked like a point where probably Bayern Munich could go, all guns blazing, really, in terms of exploding, certainly something that could have happened really if Bayern Munich were not as strong as you expect them to be, but certainly they are as strong as you expect them to be, and they didn't collapse, and they really, they really showed the two sides of them. They showed the good side, the strong side, which is the winning side, of course, the one that we know from last season, and of course they showed the vulnerability that we saw for most of this season. Not a lot of clean sheets. One of the worst defensive records in the Bundesliga, which is saying something when you consider that a team like Borussia Mönchengladbach sitting 10th, or you consider a team like Werder Bremen itself. You conceded more goals than Werder Bremen, sitting at 12th in the table. You know that really there's something wrong with the defense. But I think, again, I will say this is the way that Bayern Munich play. They want to play like that. They want to play high. They want to push up. And they want to, I almost going to say they want to concede goals. But, I mean, it looks like they want to. They invite players to, to play that way, and invite players to really try and come at them and invite teams to come at them. David Alaba is a doubt for this one, and might be interesting to see where he goes from here, considering the contract talks are really still being held. There's an unknown situation where he's going to be going to Real Madrid, Barcelona. The negotiations are still going on. The injuries continue for Douglas Costa, Kwasi, Tanguy Kwasi, Alfred Nubel, Benjamin Pavard, Max Tillman, and Corentin Tolisso, of course, long-term injury. Leipzig, as I mentioned, facing Eintracht Frankfurt. Interesting one for both sides, I think, of the game. For Eintracht Frankfurt, it is definitely a game where they want to be victorious because they know that in the back there is Bayer Leverkusen waiting for them. Dortmund want to get close to the top 4 spot this season, which they've been far from for the most part. And of course, they want to overleap Wolfsburg at 3rd. They want to have a crack in the nut, and with the whole financial situation for them, they really want to be in the Champions League. It would really help a lot if they end up being in a European competition next season, and it would be quite the achievement for Adi Hütter's guys, considering that they have the financial problems. They had to sell players with, pretty low prices, considering everything, Bas Dost in particular, and they had the financial problems that didn't help, as most of the teams really this season. But I think Eintracht Frankfurt have been hit pretty hard with this one. Leipzig, for them, I don't need to say it anymore, but for Leipzig, it is all about, catching up to Bayern, keeping close, and of course, staying in the Bundesliga title race. After the European exit, they'd have nothing to lose now in the Bundesliga. They don't have anything to detract them in the midweek or whatsoever, so it will be now all guns blazing for RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga, and at the very worst, they should be finishing second behind Bayern, and they should be part of they would be part of the Super Cup, I would say, because I really fancy them to win the Pokal. I fancy them to finish second behind Bayern, so we're going to get Bayern versus Leipzig in the Super Cup, and I think this is going to be, domestically, is going to be their most successful season, and probably it will motivate them even more to keep the project going, to keep Julian Nagelsmann going, and maybe deny him the temptation of going and joining the national German team and coach them, and also really try and improve for the next season to eventually make that little bit of a push and win the title. The Bundesliga table stands like this: 55 points for Bayern, 53 for RB Leipzig, Wolfsburg 45, Eintracht Frankfurt 43, Bayer Leverkusen 40, Dortmund 39, 35 for Union Berlin, 34 for Freiburg, 33 for Stuttgart and Mönchengladbach, 30 for Hoffenheim and Werder Bremen, Augsburg 26, 22 for Köln, 21 for Hertha Berlin, and the 3 at the bottom are Arminia Bielefeld 19, Mainz 18, and Schalke with 10. That's it from me for this episode. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and enable notifications to receive all the updates from these match recaps and all other content, including the podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And until next time, follow us on social media, site PSP on Twitter, on Instagram, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.